Hello, I'm David Hughes. Welcome to Your Perfect Body, the podcast of the Esoteric Teaching community. Today we'll finish our review of the knowledge of the soul from Bhagavad-gītā in an essay called Do Not Grieve. Some readers or listeners have written in asking, well, why are we talking from Bhagavad-gītā? And the answer is that Bhagavad-gītā is a very important source of knowledge about spiritual life. Did you think that I was making all this stuff up? Actually, we can't. Human beings aren't equipped to have comprehensive knowledge of spiritual things. We are basically conditioned by material consciousness because we find ourselves in these material bodies. And because of that, it's very hard for us to even imagine the actual spiritual existence unless we have the good fortune to come into contact with someone who has already realized it. So books like Bhagavad-gītā, as it is, are passed down in a lineage of great spiritual teachers that go all the way back to the source of spiritual knowledge. And because of that, they have a real viewpoint on spiritual life, and we can gain from that. We can learn from them, and we can save ourselves an awful lot of time and effort and mistakes. So therefore we use sources like Bhagavad-gītā to open a window into a level of self-realization that we have not yet attained. So Bhagavad-gītā is one of the greatest of all the wisdom books of the world, and you should take the time to go through it and become familiar with it. You'll learn a lot. So we're going to continue. Today's the last day of going through these verses in Bhagavad-gītā about the nature of the soul. And then we'll discuss a little bit, and then we'll get back to our regular style of presentation. Chapter 2, verse 25 of the Gita, Krishna says, "It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body." Well, why is that? Because the soul is the self. The material body is not the self. The material body is simply a vehicle, just like a car. Sometimes it's compared to a set of clothes. So just like if you rip your clothes, then you don't become very upset. You know that either you can get them sewed or you can get another set, and you just exchange one set of clothes for another. Not a big deal. Similarly, if something happens to this material body, that's not the end. That's only the vehicle. That's only the set of clothes that we're wearing in this world. So we can change it and get another one. It's not a big problem for the soul. The soul is invisible. It cannot be measured by any material means. Sometimes the scientists complain, well, what are you people talking about? Nobody's ever seen a soul. Nobody's ever measured it in a laboratory. You can't prove the existence of the soul. Well, excuse me, Mr. Scientist, are you conscious? Yes. Then you're a soul. You just proved it because you observed that you are conscious. Well, consciousness is generated at a certain state of evolution of the material body. Well, Mr. Consciousness, then can you go in your laboratory and mix some chemicals together and come up with something that's conscious? Well, no. So just because the soul is indivisible, it is indivisible, but it's also invisible, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist or it can't be proved. The proof is that we are conscious. As soon as one realizes that, then all questions of the proof of the existence of the soul or the existence of God or any of these things just evaporates. Because consciousness is inconceivable. Can you imagine what consciousness is? What the heck is it anyway? This is beyond the range of human intelligence. So when we encounter something that's beyond the range of human intelligence, we have to realize there's a greater intelligence. There is a designer. There is a creator. There is a maintainer. And there is also a destroyer aspect of God. And all these aspects of God are beyond our intelligence. That means inconceivable. We can't imagine it. We can't conceive of how it's done. How does God create consciousness? Who knows? But we know that consciousness does exist because we are conscious. Not only that, we are immutable and unchangeable. Well, what's the difference between immutable and unchangeable? Immutable means we can't be changed into something else. We are what we are, and we remain that way eternally. Immutable. So the soul is not mutable. You can't take something and change it into a soul and then change the soul into something else later on. No, only the material elements behave like that. Material elements, one day you have a patch of dirt, and then a few days later you have a garden, vegetables growing, all kinds of stuff coming up out of the ground. And then a few days later, it turns to winter, and everything becomes ice, snow. So this is the mutability of material nature. That same plant that was luxurious vegetables last summer is sitting in the compost pile now, turning into soil again. So one thing turns into another in the material world, and it goes around and around in a cycle. But the soul is not like that. The soul is what it is, always has been, and always will be. You cannot change the soul. You cannot mutate it into something else. And it's unchangeable. Once we know the nature of the soul is that way always and forever. There's no way to change the soul. And what changes is the material body and mind. So when we see people going through changes, or when we sign up for some kind of a program that advertises transformation, then we should know this is a material thing. The soul does not get transformed. Spiritual things are eternal. They never change. So finding this underlying layer of unchanging spiritual existence beneath our present material existence is the job of self-realization. And that's what we're about here. We're simply laying the framework, the foundation, the conceptual basis for this work of self-realization. And in the future podcasts, we'll go deeper into this process, but it takes time. It's not easy to change your whole belief system, but that's what we have to do. We have to change our ontology, which means our background belief system for what is going on in this world. So anyway, the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. The body is the opposite. It's visible, it's conceivable, it's mutable, and it's changeable. The body will change. You can see how your body has already changed from a baby to a youngster, to a teenager, to a young adult, and so on. And similarly, the body will grow old, diseased, become very feeble, and die. That's the nature of the body. And we shouldn't grieve for that. That's just the way it is. That's the hand that we've been dealt. And we have to play that hand as best we can. And the best way to deal with the situation, as my guru used to say, make the best of a bad bargain, is to use this life for self-realization. That way, at the end, we won't be grieving. Oh, it's the end of my life, and there are so many things I wanted to do, and I never got it done. Please. We don't want to go there. What we want to do is attain self-realization while we are young and strong.